Hello, everyone. In this class today, we are going to learn about the design of the login interface for the PC terminal. First, let's get to know the login interface through the form of a micro lesson. Today, let's study the content of the login interface for the PC terminal. The concept of the login interface. The login interface refers to the interface that requires the verification of an account and password. It has the functions of controlling user permissions, recording user behaviors, and protecting the security of operations. The classification of the login interface. According to the corresponding links of the distribution interface, the following classifications can be made. The operating system login interface, such as the Windows XP login interface, the Vista login interface, the Windows 7 login interface, etc., belongs to one of the categories of system beautification and cutification. The software login interface, such as the QQ login interface, the Chinese version login interface of online banking, the login interface of the enterprise management system, etc., the website system login interface, such as the forum login interface, the SNS login interface, the CNS login interface, the login node of the website background. Common login methods. First, login with an account and password. Second, login with a mobile phone number and verification code. Third, login with an email. Fourth, login by scanning a QR code. Fifth, third-party login, such as WeChat, QQ, Weibo, etc. Sixth, login through face recognition. Okay, this is the micro lesson about the login interface. I want to ask you, classmates, in your daily life, when you log into a website or an interface, what kind of login method do you prefer? Account and password, right? Is the quickest way scanning the code to login? Do you think it's very convenient? Now, different software apps have different login methods. I remember that when we were in high school and university, we usually logged into games or software with an account and password. Now, many classmates prefer to log in by scanning the code. Then let's do a warm-up exercise. We have just watched this video. This is a multiple choice question, and it's a bit difficult. The first question: what are the main classifications of the login interface? Please make a choice. Is it AB, ABC, ABCD, or BCD? ABC. The second question: what are the common login methods? ABCD. Select all. The third question is a true or false question. Please judge whether this statement is true or false. It's true, okay. The fourth question: we can log in with an account and password. That's right. You have learned this knowledge point very quickly. Great. This is the answer. Next, we will explain the design techniques of the login interface through a PPT. First, the visual root of the input interface. Look at the login interface. What letter shape does this visual root take? It's L, right? So, when designing the login interface, this visual root should conform to the L shape, because people's visual browsing follows an L-shaped route, from top to bottom and from left to right. When doing the design, we should pay attention to the guiding effect on the user's vision. In this way, users don't need to think too much or search around, and they can fill in the information efficiently. There are 3 design techniques for the background of the login interface. The first is the blurred background. The second is the dark tone background. And the third is the flat solid color background. Now, I will explain the background design techniques one by one. The first point, the blurred background. Blurred backgrounds have emerged like mushrooms after rain, and this style will gradually become popular. So, what is a blurred background? Take a look. This background is a blurred background. Appropriately blur the background to create a contrast between the foreground and the background. For example, when taking photos, there is a concept called near solid and far virtual, right? For example, when taking a photo of a person, the background of that person will be a bit blurred. It's the same in design. We can appropriately blur it to highlight the key points. For example, use Gaussian blur in Adobe Photoshop software. This one also blurs the street view. The second is the dark tone background. Darken the background pattern, or overlay a relatively dark and opaque color block, so that the contrast between the foreground and the background is very obvious. The third is the flat solid color background. Now, the concept of flat design is also applied in some UI designs. What is a flat icon? It is to remove the shadow and gradient color of the icon, and express the graphic through the shape and color of the graphic, which is very simple. The third design technique is to focus on user experience design. As you all know, when we do design, it is designed for users. Therefore, we should pay attention to user experience. Well, the first point is that in your daily life, when you register an account, don't you think the less information you need to input, the better? The simpler, the better. So, when designing the login interface, the first point is to pay attention to reducing user input. The second point, when you register, don't you hope that the software will give you some registration prompts? For example, whether the account has been used before, whether the password does not meet the requirements. The first point is to reduce user input, because for each additional field, the registration rate will correspondingly decrease. Since everyone dislikes being bothered, we should reduce user input. For example, this interface is very simple, right? The second is the informational registration prompt. Let's look at this case. For example, this username, right? If it meets the requirements, a tick will be displayed. If it is wrong, a cross will be displayed. For example, if the password does not meet the requirements, a cross will be marked. This is called an informational registration prompt. Okay, so what's next? We will explain a way of the login interface through a PPT. Well, according to the principle of natural adaptation, the visual flow line is always from top to bottom and from left to right. According to this principle and the flow line, combined with the content to be displayed, the layout of the login interface can be summarized into three types: left-right layout, up-down layout, and central layout. So, this is a left-right layout, this is an up-down layout, and this is a central layout, all of which can be centered on the screen. Next, I will explain according to these three layout methods. First, let's take a look at the left-right layout method. The left-right layout is the most common layout. For example, let's look at this case. The login interface of Taobao.com is on the right side, and other content is on the left side. Generally speaking, brand promotion, function introduction, and corporate publicity are on the left side of this interface. As for the up-down layout, it means that the login interface and the brand image are arranged in an up-down layout. Overall, the central layout has a relatively simple design. Next, we will explain the design cases of the login interface. For example, let's take a look at the interface of Yuan Fudao. The interface of Yuan Fudao is very simple. Take a look. Isn't the visual flow line in an L shape? Including this part is also in an L shape. So, in many cases, the essence of design remains the same despite all the changes. Okay, let's take a look. These are both login interfaces of the same brand. Let's see what the differences are between these two cases. What kind of layout is this? Left-right. This is the central layout. The layout methods are different. Okay, look. When designing the login interface, you can add some 2.5D effects for decoration. For this login interface, there are graphics in the front and some photos in the back. Take a look. This is the effect of combining photos with some color blocks and the layout of the text. There are also some gradient texts and gradient graphics at the bottom. The effect is very good. You can also copy and draw on this, including some simple color blocks on it. I think the overall design sense is very good. These are some cases of the login interface. After your classmates have seen them, you should also learn from and refer to them. Okay, that's all for today's class. Thank you, classmates.